According to everyone who's ever worked for Dad, he was the hardest working governor or politician they'd ever worked for. And he had an enormous amount of energy. He would wake up at 4 o'clock and he'd already shot up the emails for the day by 5. And everyone had about 15 emails in their inbox from him. And he would make time for having breakfast with his children before he ran off to work. He'd wake us up at like 6:30. We'd have breakfast at 7. He'd drop us off. And those were special times. I had more quality time with Dad because he was acutely aware of his busy schedule. So when he made time for us, it was really time for us. And it was wonderful. And so that, for the 4 years that he was governor, my most special moments were having breakfast in the morning with him. But I do remember the night of the election in 2002. We were just like, is Dad gonna win? What's gonna happen? And he won, and we thought, we were in our pajamas, we thought, we have to go down there and support our dad. So we begged security, please take us back. We wanna go run on stage. So we got dressed and ran on stage and surprised Dad as he, said thank you to the state of Alabama for re-electing him. And the next morning around 4 o'clock, he got a phone call from someone saying, Bob Riley is claiming that he won the election. And some votes were found in Baldwin County, and you're gonna have to contest this. He just wanted a recount. He wanted to know how the votes were really cast. And he asked the Attorney General at the time, let's have a recount. And this guy said, anyone who dares recount these votes is going to go to prison. I will jail anyone who tries to recount these votes. So he conceded nicely. He said, I know I'm not going to win in the courts. The courts are Republican. I understand that I really don't have a chance. So I'm going to run again in 4 years. It's not a problem. And after he announced that he was going to run again, he was indicted for bribery, for appointing a man to a health board, a non-paying board he'd presided on for 12 years under 3 other governors. He didn't even want the position. Dad had to say, please come back. They were able to get a Bush-friendly judge, someone who had been appointed by George W. Bush. His name is Mark Everett Fuller. And what's interesting about Mark Fuller is that he was district attorney before my dad was governor and had corrupted the district attorney's office. And the person my dad replaced him with, Gary McLilley, actually brought a case against Judge Fuller. You spiked the salary of your chief investigative officer, you corrupted the office, you used it for political purposes. Basically, they won their case against Mark Fuller, even as he was a judge at the time. 4 years later, he's presiding judge over my father's case. What makes matters worse is this federal judge also had vetted economic interest in the Bush administration. Why? He owned a company called DOS Aviation, which refueled planes, trained pilots, provided soldiers uniforms, and he was rewarded by the Bush administration with a $200 million defense contract. So during the course of this trial, Mark Fuller was pretty much going through a divorce. He'd been having an affair with his clerk for about 5 years. And there's a lot of people that feel that that is enough information to issue a new trial. Mark Fuller was always and very happily one-sided. Never rebuked the jury for falling asleep. I mean, when I was there, half the jury was asleep. It was a long deliberation. They were deliberating like 3 days. And from what I understand, he threatened the jury during deliberation, saying, and I paraphrase, I can keep you here till next Christmas. I need a verdict. And immediately after, within hours of the judge saying that, they had a conviction. In 2007, Dad was sentenced to 7 years and dragged away, literally, in handcuffs and shackles, leg manacles, to a maximum security prison in Atlanta, where he was put in solitary confinement. I didn't get to talk to my dad for 2 months. I was petrified. I didn't want to go out in public. I didn't want to speak to people. I was really depressed. I would cry myself to sleep at night, praying for him, asking that I would take any fear that he had and have it for myself, because I didn't want him to suffer. And I knew that he was. And my dad's spirit is so strong. He's such a positive person that he only said positive things when I was finally able to talk to him. He assured me everything is fine, I'm totally fine. He never let on for a minute that he had suffered, because he didn't want his children, his family, his friends to worry. You know, the appeal process, it basically ends before it starts. We were sending all of the appeals to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, and the Chief Justice was the same man who refused a recount to my father in Alabama. He is now the Chief Justice over the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, where all of Dad's appeals go. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case, sent it back to Judge Fuller without comment, basically saying, do what you will with this person who you absolutely hate. A huge injustice has occurred. There's a woman, Jill Simpson, Dana Jill Simpson, who just 2 weeks, I think, after Dad was taken to prison, said, I was involved in this, and I have to say something, and she offered up an affidavit. What was really shocking is Karl Rove's role in directing the Department of Justice, not just to target Don Siegelman, but to target Democrats. Hopefully Dad will be released. Unprecedented, via presidential pardon. 5 years ago, when Dad was dragged away in handcuffs and shackles, I felt completely alone and vulnerable, and I wanted to hide. I wanted to throw the covers over my head and isolate myself from any further damage. Fast forward 5 years, the anger that I felt was not the same that I felt before. It was not full of fear. It was full of love for my dad, and the sense that I will not stand to be buried under this injustice. I belong with you, you belong with me, my sweet.